Let's go around the UK and see how community organisations in Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales and England support resilience in communities when faced with adversity. We'll start in Scotland at the Inverclyde Community Trust, where for over 25 years they have been tackling unemployment in the area.
Our organisation was founded in 1987 after the demise of the shipyards in Inverclyde. At that time our unemployment levels were very, very high, 47%, with nearly 12,000 people losing their jobs. Our population at that time was perhaps about 100,000, and the idea behind the community economic and employment initiative was supported by Strathclyde Regional Council, and we were given funding to set up an employment programme.
I think we've got to put the foundation of the trust in context. Inverclyde was always known as a shipbuilding area, and we were always reliant on heavy industry. What actually happened is, as we've seen the demise of the shipyards, we've seen a massive unemployment in the area, and we realised at that point in time that things were going to need to change. People were going to need to be trained differently and have a different aspect on what their career was going to be. At that point in time, in about 1987, is when the Greenock Employment Action Group started, and that was made up from an urban aid application to Strathclyde Regional Council.
Over the last 29 years, there have been thousands of examples of how our organisation has helped people move forward. People who have got jobs with us who wouldn't have believed that they could do the things that they've learned to do with us and contribute to the community of Inverclyde.
I lost my previous job in February, and it got to the stage where I was really depressed, had to go and get medication for depression and stuff, because I thought, because of my age and that as well, I thought that'll be it, or scrap heap if you like. And I got a wee bit of a lifesaver, basically my part. I've got my confidence and everything back, because through the trust it's definitely helped me through.
I personally interviewed Robert and have given him a job working with people who are furthest away from returning to employment. And I think Robert epitomises just exactly what we're about, helping people to help other people. One of the planks of the Trust's main activities has been in the development of our heritage and cultural services. And for that we spent significant amount of money securing the Dutch Gable House in Greenock. The Dutch Gable gives us a very solid base in which to base our cultural services, which include storytelling, book writing with a variety of different types of groups, elderly people, folk from schools, women's groups, etc., etc. Providing a space where people can begin to rebuild their confidence, begin to have a sense of the history and sense of positiveness about the area that we live in. Port Glasgow Business and Training Centre provides the base for all of our activities, including our outdoor teams, where currently we are carrying out pathway work in parts of Greenock. At our workshops in Port Glasgow, you'll be able to see where we where we make the planters for the housing associations, and also where we make our craft products which are being sold across the country.
I've been working for the Trust for 6 months. I've been responsible for spraying and finishing shields for a client called Scotcrest. And when I finish here, I actually got a full-time job with the client Scotcrest to be their full-time sprayer. Again,
when you actually look at the Trust, it's the amount of people who have actually went through the doors of the Trust is the real beneficiaries of what has happened. I always look at the Trust as a partnership between Inverclyde Council and the Trust as our main delivery of employability to services. And the reason for that is because they're good at that.
As I come to the end of my time with the Trust, which will possibly end next year, we'll be 30 years old, and I think we'll be at the beginning of a new era in terms of where we go next. New opportunities are presenting themselves every time, and although we're about to enter into some of the most difficult times financially, both for local authorities and for governments, I believe that community-driven organisations have the best opportunity to make the best of the worst.
Now let's go across to Broughshane and District Community Association in Northern Ireland, where we will find out about the importance of the community organisation since the civil unrest.
I've seen this community change since I was a teenager to be more progressive, more forward-thinking, and above all, more ambitious. And people do now believe that they can make a difference. They are now beginning to see the benefits and the value of the work that we do. Hey, let's take a little look around the village. We are also joined today with Charlie Fisher from Development Trust Northern Ireland. When Charlie came, he was a stranger, but now we regard him as a local.
Well, we are in a post-conflict transformation space in Northern Ireland, and we really have been focused on thinking about how it is that we support communities to do more in that sort of post-conflict time since the Good Friday Agreement of 1998.
As we travelled on our journey to sustainability, we wanted to purchase the police station in the village. Our interest in the station led us to apply for the first pilot community asset transfer projects in Northern Ireland. This was significant because it meant that the station would not be put on the market.
The department provides capacity support in partnership with Development Trusts Northern Ireland and is keen to work with councils or other partners in this particular case where we are today in the Broughshane former police station. It's now been turned into a unit with 4 creative artists selling their wares from other artists in the area. So it's creating employment, it's creating revenue, and it's creating a place of interest to visit along all the other places of interest in the village. So it's a real success story in terms of what can be achieved with that sort of voluntary action and community commitment.
The most significant point for us was to take away the last image of the Troubles and remove the ugly security fence which was around the station. This also opened up the heart of the village and connected it with the library on the opposite side of the road.
I mean, I think in Broughshane in particular, what it is that you have is a really clear example of how you can use something which was part of the architecture of the Troubles, if you like, which is a very closed police station, has taken down the physical barriers which were part of that, has opened that up onto the community, onto the front of the village, and reused, refocused, reconsidered the purpose of that building.
I stand downstairs and look out the window, and all the locals, even the children, they're all brushing the streets. They're fixing the plants, they're cutting the grass. It's such a tight-knit community, and they seem to be very proud of their village.
It is important that we never forget the reason why we started, and that was the social aspect of our development work in the village. Identifying need, addressing that need, and also then improving the quality of life of everyone in the village. So everything that we do improves people's quality of life in the village, but has the additional spin of increasing visitor numbers and triggering the economic growth within the village.
Broughshane and District Community Association have 3 assets in this village. They have Houston's Mill, they have their office space in the centre of the village, and they now have just recently acquired the police station. It has helped that organisation then become sustainable in its own right, because each of those assets in themselves helps Broughshane to generate an income. And in generating an income, that organisation becomes less dependent upon government sources of funding, from council sources of funding. And it creates that sort of sense of autonomy and resilience that an organisation, that a development trust or a regeneration trust should have, so that it has the authority of its own decision making in terms of investing its own resources in what it wants to see happen in its own place.
The key thing in community development is the passion and commitment that local voluntary and community organisations bring. Government can't actually buy that, and that I think is the dynamic and the driver for change in any area.
Now we're heading to Galeri Caernarfon in Wales to find out how their organisation has helped transform a struggling seaside town.
we're in a place here which has been sort of neglected for many years, you know. But we know it's much more than that, and you know, there's just this massive sort of potential here. You're talking now about a World Heritage Site, and within the walled town, 50% of the properties at the time were either vacant, derelict or for sale, and some were all three. Well, initially the funding came through a government urban programme. I think we got 100,000 in capital, and then there was a £20,000 revenue stream for 3 years which went with that, and that was it basically. That initial seed capital was used to buy and refurbish a particularly visible eyesore, and that got us a lot of attention, actually, positive attention, and I think that worked because then we got into a joint venture with different people for different developments. We borrowed money, made use of mainstream grants, been inventive in, you know, how we actually fund things. So it's that kind of thing that you can never sort of take anything for granted, really, and you just have to be sort of creative all the time about how we actually get things done. Well, the difference is huge, you know, not just physically. There's a difference in the mood, there's a difference in the kind of outlook, there's a difference in how many people actually visit the town from different parts of the world. I mean, we've been walking around Carnarvon today and we've been hearing Spanish, French, you know, it's that kind of place now which is able to attract and you know, retain people. Be they sort of visitors or people who are returning to the area. There's a reason for them to come back. The art centre itself is a multi sort of purpose centre, really. We've got a 400-seat theatre, we've got 2 studios, we've got the catering facilities, we've got 16 creative work units, 16 creative companies rather, who occupy the units here in addition to ourselves. We put on over 400 events every year of different sort of across the art form. We do conferencing, we do weddings here, so it's everything basically. And the whole thing has been put together with that kind of cross-subsidy, financial cross-subsidy in mind. And the business model is based on very fluid sort of movements of money from where it's created to where it's actually needed.
When the opportunity came to work for the gallery, I basically jumped at it because it's just so many different things going on there. It's a taste for everybody, and it does bring tourists in, but it brings a lot of the local people in as well. Like this weekend, they've been doing some lanterns for the last week in gallery. They'll be lighting them up, and tonight from 7 o'clock, it's actually a procession going from the gallery all the way around town, the Carnarvon castle walls, and finishing up in the middle of town there.
I think it's generally accepted that we played a key role in the Carnarvon that you see today. I mean, the public sector wasn't doing that kind of regeneration work, and the private sector didn't want to do it, so there was that kind of vacuum there that we filled at the time. I mean, we never actually competed with anybody for property. There was just nobody wanted to buy it, basically, so we had this sort of free run. So yeah, I think, you know, even in terms of where we are now, sitting here today, I mean, 6 years ago, we were the only building here, and this building has been a catalyst for the redevelopment of the kind of northern bit of the town, around the harbour area. So yeah, I think it's been a massive sort of effect and influence that we've had.
To finish, we're back in Yorkshire, at the Hebden Bridge Community Association, a community anchor based at the Town Hall. And I'll let them tell you their story.
Well, we'll never have another Christmas like it, I don't think. So Hebden Bridge sits is a junction of 2 rivers, and on Christmas Day evening, the flood sirens went off, and a lot of the local people were out cleaning roads, and we thought we kind of got away with a flood. There was a few puddles around and it seemed to kind of cope, and the water drained away. And then we were all woken up again at about 7 o'clock on Boxing Day morning with the flood sirens going off, and the river both rivers were absolutely full.
I only live in a little village on the outskirts, and I've been watching it on social media, which again is painful in itself. We came in and couldn't get into the property. My son was down from Newcastle and my daughter was home from university. And I was so grateful that they were there, because the next day, although it was painful sitting at home knowing that this was all down here waiting for us, the next day they were with me to walk through that door to hold my hand. And I kind of needed that. Sorry. Compose yourself. I kind of needed that family and friends around me to just walk through initially and just take it all in and help.
What happened was we got a call from somebody in the local authority, or my predecessor did, to say, can you open the town hall and can we start to use the town hall as a response location? So we said yes. We said yes to the request and opened the building, and it just became this amazing centre.
Where everyone could congregate and where everyone was in the same position, we had to go together because it was so emotional. The minute you got there, we were in shock. All of us were in shock. The whole town was in shock. But the minute you got to the town hall and saw everyone else in the same position, it just brought up so much emotion in us all. We weren't alone. We weren't the only ones in there crying. We weren't the only ones in there offering hugs and receiving hugs and offering kisses and receiving kisses. Everybody was doing it, and it wasn't just businesses. There were homeowners there, and then people who hadn't been affected that were just coming down to try and help. So it was a real sense of community there, and we needed that. I don't know what we'd have done without it, to be perfectly honest, on the day.
We're very conscious of not trying to talk about us having a benefit out of the flood, because obviously so many people have had so much heartache as a result of it. But actually, from our point of view, in our role as the community association running the town hall in the centre of Hebden Bridge, the flood has had, perhaps a transformational effect. It certainly moved our relationship to the town on to another level, I think, in terms of people wanting to come here, enjoying the space, and seeing us in a different way. So, obviously, because so much of the centre of the town was flooded, our cafe got people coming to us because the cafes were flooded. People who previously rented rooms in other community buildings were coming to us because those buildings weren't operating. But actually, I think above all that, there were lots and lots of people who came into the town hall who perhaps had this perception of what it was before, or what they thought it was, or how they thought it would be, and saw it in a very different light.
I think I was unaware of how valuable a community resource it was until the Boxing Day floods, and it made me realise that it's a very essential part of Hebden Bridge community. We are a good community. We do say the town hall itself is an example of what a community Hebden Bridge is, because if it hadn't been for just the Hebden Bridge people, the town hall wouldn't exist.
It's a really interesting challenge as a place as well, because it's so well loved. It's got such a good centre. It acts as that centre for the town, and as I said earlier, that the whole idea was to recreate a town hall as the centre of civic life. Everything that happens in the town happens here. That's what we try and make happen. And I think it does it, and it's just wonderful to be part of it. I love it.